A big thank you to Samantha Shane for taking the time to talk to me about the 30-minute session I'll be giving at this year's Nonprofit Technology Conference, APIs for Nonprofits and Newbies. And here's our preview conversation about it. Okay, well, I'm so excited for this 30-minute session. It's so short, these 30-minute sessions. And so I decided for my 30-minute session to try to take a topic that is literally impossible to learn fully at all, like in any time that
30 years down to 30 minutes. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. Well, actually, the thing that I hope people will take away from this the most is just the mindset of confidence and capability to be able to tackle this topic.
Curiosity, experimentation, try AI. It'll put data into a spreadsheet, or it won't. You have nothing to lose.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure people have heard the term API like floated around and maybe have some idea of what it means, but I think there's a lot of fear of the unknown there. And it sounds so technical, and it is quite technical, but there are options to make it less technical. There's a kind of clicks, not code interface that you can use to deal with it. But I just really want folks to get a sense of confidence around understanding the basics, the high levels of what APIs are and why we would use them and how you would start using them. And that's what we're going to cover.
I want to hear more, not necessarily during your session, but right now, about your journey with getting comfortable and competent with APIs. Like, how did that start for you?
It's been a long one, and I didn't know I was on it. So I don't know, maybe 10.
That's so real. Oh my gosh. I have experienced that too.
Yeah. Okay, we need to talk more about that then, like the journeys we didn't know we were on. Yeah, so I think it was maybe 10 or 12 years ago when an app came out, If This Then That.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a while ago, and it was so cool. A couple of other similar things came out around that time, which was trying to give users, just regular old folks like us, the ability to set up a kind of rules that would say, if one thing happens, if I geolocate on my phone to my workplace, then do this other thing, right? If this, then that, send an email to my spouse saying I got to work okay. And I played around with that a while, and I thought it was very, very cool, but not from the perspective of how that was working. I thought workflows, automations, that was the cool part. Then Zapier, or Zapier, I call it Zapier because I like that, even though it's Zaps, but that came out and really democratized the use of APIs. And they were talking about it and blogging about how they were using APIs to run Zapier. That's when I kind of first really got the introduction to it.
It's so interesting to make that connection from your first example, because I wouldn't have thought that fit into the category of APIs, because I think of APIs as two kind of databases talking to each other, but it could also be two systems, or you could think of geolocating as a system and sending an email as, but I often think of it as I have fields over here that need to be populated from fields over here. Let's send them over. And then do some sort of other action if you want. So whenever we talk about this, I always feel like my mind expands in terms of what's possible and the how. I know that it's possible for if something happens, then do something else. But I am also one of those people who uses those platforms and doesn't always know what's happening under the hood. So even if it's an API, I might not be oh, right, I'm going to go put on my API pants today.
Yeah. And what you said is not wrong. APIs can be used for databases to speak to each other. I mean, we've talked about this a bunch, that databases and the general idea of a spreadsheet, just cells with information in them, are the underlying structure of how data is held in your website system. So your login database, it's still got that database underneath it. So it certainly can be used to fill data between databases. And then the things that you don't think of as databases as much is also like your programs. That's why API, application, programming, interface, it will deal with all those things. That's really interesting how it opens up the talk about what are our systems at all. But
it's an interface, but it doesn't have an interface.
It doesn't have an interface. Yeah. Although I will show a little bit of what we can visualize the interface of the API experience is. But what's really like the thing that most people think of is that it's a conversation between computers. And the thing that it's been most useful for me, is getting around some of the lack of reporting user interface in systems, that you either can't make your own custom reports, or you can't get everything from reports that you want, that you can't schedule them. You have to go into your system and actually click run report. And the same kind of code underneath the system that allows you to do that in your interface can actually be accessed by code outside of that login interface to pull data either into a spreadsheet or into another database without having to log into that interface and use their limited reporting tools. And then you have also this whole host of other options to use of scheduling and then manipulating the data into different ways. So I think that's a great starting place to think, I just want my data. How can a system say I'm not going to give you your data because we don't have the right reporting tools? Well, okay.
Right. You're like, I can see it. I want it, and it's mine.
Yeah. And it's not always 100% possible with APIs, because just like like software needs to build the reporting side, they also need to set up the structure of APIs to be able to get that data out. But there are a lot more options in that area typically.
So are people gonna leave your session knowing? Are you going to see an API work? Are you going to learn about APIs? Are you going to learn how to run an API yourself?
Yeah, yes. So all those things. So in 30 minutes, what we're going to do is get that foundational information about what an API is, so that when you're talking about it in polite company at cocktail parties, you feel like you can really talk about it, and sound like you know what you're talking about. We're going to hear from a colleague at an organization that I worked with that used APIs for the first time to get data out of their system, out of their learning management system, and their journey from not starting in knowing how to do that to using it very well now. And we're going to learn about the different tools you can use to access your APIs without having to know how to write code. So, and we'll take some examples of what some really cool APIs are doing right now.
And some of them are free, right? And some of them, many of them, you don't need to know how to code. So it's much more accessible than first meets the eye.
Yes. When I first started the project with the colleague who's going to present, what I said to them, and this goes along with our longstanding discussions about is free software really free? Because you need an investment of time and energy to learn and maintain it. But when we first started this project and we suggested the potential of using APIs to pull data, the first thing I said was, you don't necessarily need a developer on staff. You don't need someone who even needs to learn how to code. You need someone who is going to have the confidence to go into a new, scary area of technology and have the grit and resilience to learn and go through and not be scared away. And the person who's joining us in our session was that person. And I'm really excited that she'll get to share that journey.
Yay. Well, I'll be there.
Exciting. I'll be doing it from Costa Rica, the best place to do API discussions. So.
Nice. Yeah, I can't wait. And I hope that lots of people come, because you're going to be sharing some really, really practical, fun knowledge.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope it opens up a new world for folks. Cool.
I think it will.